Thursday, August 31st. In addition to my regular glasses, I have special goggles, prescription goggles for playing sports. They're made out of some kind of astronaut plastic that could crash land on Venus and not break. Nothing can break them. If the dinosaurs had worn these goggles and the Earth had been bombarded by mile-wide asteroid boulders, the dinosaurs would still have died, but their goggles would be intact. Nothing could break these goggles. The reason I brought this up is that Miss Alvarez read the announcement this morning that tryouts for the soccer teams, boys and girls, will start tomorrow. I have my goaltending gear, the prescription goggles, knee pads, and elbow pads in a drawer in my room. I just checked the drawer to make sure everything was ready. I didn't want to find out tomorrow that my gear was all packed away in our climate controlled storage place on Route 22. Mom and I took some stuff to the storage place today. Mom is not adjusting well to the smoke from the muck fire. She took down her mother's drapes from the dining room and packed them up with her grandmother's quilts from the bedrooms. I won't have them ruined by the smoke, she told me as I lugged the boxes out to the car. We'll put them back out when your grandparents visit in December. My grandparents are mom's parents. Dad's parents died when he was young. His father when he was 10 and his mother when he was a freshman in college. Dad never talks about them. It's like they never existed. Mom doesn't talk about much about hers either. I know that my grandfather retired from the army as a master sergeant. He still works as a security guard in an office building. My grandmother always ran a daycare business out of her home wherever that happened to be, right up until last year. Mom says that's where she inherited her own organizational skills. Mom is now donating these skills to the Homeowners Association of Lake Windsor Downs. Mr. Costello asked her to be on the architectural committee. It's a powerful position. If you have any plan to improve your house, even if it's just planting a new tree, you have to have it approved beforehand by the architectural committee. Because of this, Mom has taken to spotting irregularities whenever we drive into or out of the development. She's taken to saying stuff like, look at the trim color on that Lancaster. That's not a regulation trim color. It looks like pea soup. Today, she said, look at the mailbox on that Tudor. That's not a Tudor style mailbox. I said, lighten up, Mom. Don't tell me to lighten up. These people all read and sign the regulations before they bought houses here. Those regulations are serious, Paul. This development has a certain look to it. If you like that look, then you buy a house here. If you don't like that look, then you buy a house someplace else. What harm could it do to have a non Tudor mailbox? Mom thought about that one. Not much, I suppose. I won't send them a letter about the mailbox because the one they have doesn't look bad. But if 20 more houses decide to put up 20 different styles of mailboxes, it start to look like a shanty town around here. Mom suddenly got very serious. Paul, I'm talking as somebody who never ever lived in a nice house growing up or even lived anywhere near a nice house. This is not a joke to me. Your house is your family's biggest investment, and you have to protect that investment. At the storage place, Mom showed her ID to an elderly guard who waved us on. I unlocked our bin, pulled up the sliding metal door, and stacked the boxes inside. On the way home, I turned the conversation to the soccer tryouts. Mom actually had a good suggestion. She said, you should call that Joey Costello boy. You two could run some laps tonight. Maybe we can get a soccer team carpool going with them too. I called Joey as soon as we got back and asked him if he wanted to start running. He said he runs every night at 6:30, and I can meet him at the guardhouse if I wanted. I said okay and hung up. That was odd. If he ran every night, why had I never seen him? Anyway, Joey turned out to be pretty funny. Up until now, he'd been a little stiff. We started to run with the sand at our backs and just a trace of smoke in the air. On our second lap, he pointed to a house, a white Stuart on a corner lot. He said, you see that house? Mr. Dunley and his son live there. They've been hit by lightning 3 times. No way. Absolutely 3 times. Are they losers or what? I had to laugh when I noticed the sign on their front lawn. Hey, look, it's for sale. Yeah, like they've got a prayer. I don't know. When you're looking at a house, does anybody tell you bad stuff like that? Joey said, no way. They'd never mention it. What if you found out? They'd tell you that it was a good thing. They'd tell you that statistically it's the safest house in the whole development, maybe in the whole world. There's almost no chance that this house will ever get hit by lightning again. I looked back over my shoulder at the receding Stuart. It'll get hit again and again, and I'll tell you why. Why? The lightning. It knows that spot. What are you talking about? I pointed at an empty lot full of sugar sand. Think about this place. After they plowed under all the tangerine groves, what did they do? Who? What did who do? The developers. The construction guys. What did they do? I don't know. They leveled everything out with bulldozers, right? They brought in tons and tons of that white sand and dumped it here. Then they landscaped over everything. Yeah? So what? So let's say that corner house used to be the highest ground around here for miles. Maybe it was at the top of a rise with big trees on it. So that's where the lightning always used to strike. Then it must have had big dead trees on it. Whatever. This was the highest spot and it worked like a lightning rod. Now you could bring back those developers and the construction guys and the engineers and ask them to point out where the highest spot around here used to be. Not one of them would know, but the lightning knows. It hits right where it always hits. It's just that some fool has stuck a house here. I pointed back toward the front of the development, toward the four English royal family models. Who knows? Maybe somebody, after all this crumbles away, the trees will be back and these storms will make sense again. We completed our second lap. Joey's looking at me a little strangely. He said, "See you tomorrow." Right. Tryouts are at 4. You need a ride home? Now I'll catch a ride with Mike. Okay. I started off, but Joey was struggling with something. He finally said, "Hey, Fisher, I don't think lightning is that complicated. I don't think it knows anything about anything." I thought about that. Yeah, maybe I'm exaggerating, but maybe I'm not. Friday, September 1st. My last class of the day is language arts with Mrs. Bridges. If you think we're slugs in the morning with Miss Alvarez, you should see us by sixth period. Some kids actually fall asleep, but I don't think they're completely to blame. By the time we get to sixth period, the portables, air conditioners have been struggling along for 7 hours, with the doors constantly opening and closing. We're sweating buckets by then. We're wilting. Even Mrs. Bridges' perm is wilting by then. But today, when the speaker crackled on and the gong bell sounded, I was filled with new energy. I hefted up my gym bag and set off for the soccer tryouts. Just to the south of the portables is a baseball diamond with a scoreboard that says Lake Windsor Middle School, home of the Seagulls. The soccer field is to the left of that, next to a stretch of undeveloped land. As I left the wooden walkways, Joy fell into step with me and we jogged together to the fields. "You're a pretty good goalie, right?" he asked me. "Right," I said. "Then I'm going out for fullback." "Hey, we need at least two goalies. What if I get killed?" "You're not going to get killed. I'll play fullback. I like fullback. You get to knock people down." "Suit yourself." Joey pointed to a circle of kids near the sideline. "Check out Tommy over there, the kid with the ball. He's from the Philippines. Awesome display, man. Awesome." I looked over and recognized the kid from my homeroom, Tommy Acaso. He had a group of guys standing around watching him like he was a juggler. We stopped to watch him too. He kept hitting the ball straight up in the air with his head, feet, and knees, never letting it touch the ground, just keeping it going and going and going. Sometimes he would make it stop dead right on his forehead. It was an awesome display. Not all of these kids were the toe stubbers who I had played with last week. "That's Gino over there," Joey whispered. "Gino Del Luca. He'll be the captain this year, no doubt. He was a co-captain last year, scored 22 goals." I saw a big guy, big for a soccer player, with long curly black hair. He was driving penalty kicks into the net from 12 yards out. I asked Joey, "Where's he from?" "I don't know. New Jersey, I think." Gino kept hammering penalty shots into the upper left corner of the goal, while a tall kid in a gray sweatshirt retrieved the ball and rolled it back. Gino is obviously a major leaguer. He's the kind of guy you have to have on a soccer team in order to win. The guy who wants to take the penalty kicks. The guy who's hungry to score the goals. The head coach is Mr. Walski, an eighth grade teacher. He blew a whistle and we all moved toward him. He looks more like a basketball guy to me, but he coached the soccer team last season and he knows most of the seventh and eighth graders. He's tall and nearly bald. When he spoke, it was in a raspy voice. "I want to congratulate you guys on making the team. There was a scattering of laughter. For those of you who may not know it, our policy in Lake Windsor Middle School soccer program is this: everybody makes a team, everybody practices, and everybody gets a uniform. However, and he paused here for emphasis, that does not mean that everybody is, as we say, on the bus. Everybody cannot, and I must emphasize, cannot go to every away game. We have a small team bus and we have restrictions due to insurance. We can only take 15 kids to the away games. That's our policy. You're part of this team from day one, but your part may be to play in practice games only and to dress for the home games only. Does everybody understand? There were nods around the group. The coach continued, okay, let's get started. Gino, you're the captain. Take them twice around the field. Then we're going to break into sixth, seventh, and eighth grade groups and start calisthenics. Let's move out. I ran with Joey and about 30 other guys twice around the field. That means half of us are dog meat, Joey muttered. What are you complaining about? You're on the team. 15 kids are on the real team, and 15 kids are dog meat. I was dog meat last year, and it was a drag. I don't want to do that again. Hey, it makes sense to me. Why drive all these extra guys to a game when there's no chance to go to play? Yeah, that's easy for you to say. After calisthenics, we broke into groups to kick the ball around. I had no reason to do that, so I found my gym bag and got out my goggles, knee pads, and elbow pads. Gino and some other eighth graders were back at the goal kicking shots at the kid in the gray sweatshirt. I walked up next to the goal and stood there until they couldn't help but notice me. The kid in gray checked out my goggles and said, well, yo, it came from Mars. The eighth graders laughed, but when I didn't go away, Gino said to me, you here to play or are you here to model sportswear? To play. Gino motioned and the kid in the gray sweatshirt stood off to the side. I moved into the goal, dead in the center, and placed my heels on the chalk line. The kid with red hair was next in line to kick. He took a shot that rolled wide of the goal. I never even moved. I was waiting for Gino and he knew it. He called for the ball and then placed it with care on the penalty line. He stepped back paces and looked right at me. I got down into my goalie crouch, a coiled spring ready to release. Gino shouted like a samurai, took two quick steps, and started his powerful kick. I sprang up to my right, exactly where I had watched him kick every other penalty goal. I heard the sound of his foot walloping the ball, and then I felt it smack against my right wrist. The ball flew away from the goal as fast as it had flown in. It sailed toward the far sideline. I hit the ground and popped up immediately, ready for more. Gino looked at the ball bouncing away in the distance and then looked back at me. He seemed genuinely surprised. Whoa, he said quietly and gave me a thumbs up sign with both hands. The kid in the gray sweatshirt hung around by the goal for another minute. Then he casually walked out and joined the others on the line, waiting for a turn to kick one at me. The coach didn't see any of this, but I knew I had just landed the job. I was now the Lake Windsor Middle School goaltender, first string goaltender, on the bus goaltender.